Hi, good evening. Welcome to our Advocate Show. My name is Miguel Escobar and I'm the Vice President of AOBE. And with us we have Miss Ida.
Hi, welcome everyone. We hope everyone is doing a good day and having a good day and staying warm out there. And today we have a very special guest from TSTA, the Director of Public Affairs, Miss Portia. Do you want to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about what it is that you do at the state level for us?
Sure. Thank you for first inviting me to participate. I've been seeing your show on my own Facebook feed now for several months and just applaud you guys for being very innovative in this time of a pandemic when you're trying to communicate with your members and get close to your folks and just conveying information to them. It's certainly been very difficult this last year to do that, and I think this is an excellent way to send your message to not only your members but to your community at large. So I applaud you guys. My name is Portia Bossi, and I'm the Director of Public Affairs. I have been with TSTA for 15 years, coming up this summer. And before being director, I was a governmental relations specialist, and I lobbied the Texas House for TSTA. And so now my job is a little more complex than it used to be because there are a lot more moving parts to be responsible for. A large part of what I do is in the realm of communications and making sure that our at the state level, we're communicating down to the local level and to all our members across the state what's happening in Austin, at the Capitol, at the State Board of Education, at the Teacher Retirement System, and at the State Board for Educator Certification. There's a lot of agency work that happens year round, even when the legislature isn't in session. So we make sure that our weekly briefings to you are informative and relevant. And we try to keep up with our social media platforms and make sure that we're putting articles and news on Facebook and Twitter as quickly as we can so that you all get the information that you need to know what's going on at the state level. Because what happens at the state directly impacts what happens to you in your classrooms and in your districts. A lot of the policy being driven at the state level over the last decade has really pushed a lot of discretion at the local level. Instead of being top down, it's bottom up with a lot of our policies now. And so it makes it really important for you, for your membership at the local level, to really be active and engaged at your state school board. But also during session, being engaged at the state level is really important as well, because we can get a lot of relief at the state level through statute and through budget appropriations to help you at the local level. So it's really two levels of engagement at TSTA, at your locals, and then at the state level, and then of course at the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
Something I just learned, NEA just sent out an alert that the Education Committee in the House has done their markup for the next stimulus package, and the House is committing to spend $130 billion nationally for K through 12. And so that will now go to the Senate at some point in the next several weeks. It'll get voted on by the full House, probably the week after next, and then it'll go to the Senate for their maneuverings, and then hopefully at some point they'll come together with an agreed budget nationally that they can send to President Biden. So I'm sorry, Ida, did you have something you wanted to interject?
No. I'll let you go ahead and finish, and then we'll touch on some things. So that's fine.
Feel free to interrupt. I mean, we can talk about these things in buckets. We've got the federal bucket, we've got the state bucket, and then we have the local bucket. So,
well, for starters, Portia, right now, I'm wondering because I know you guys have been doing a great job with updating us and things like that, and updating the different local boards. When Micaela's on those board meetings for the state, and so is Veronica. But you guys have been doing a great job with all of that, because this past 12 months have been like no other, of course. So I'm wondering, and if you can also let the people, how is that impacting this legislative session so far? What have you seen? Do you think it is going to be a little bit more helpful, where these legislators are going to empathize with what the people are going through? Because we've seen a lot more engagement at our local level from our members, and people reaching out, because they're at the end of their rope already, and they just don't know what else to do. So they're now speaking up and taking action, calling people and things like that. So I'm wondering now, at the state level that you're dealing with, are you seeing a difference because of this pandemic for this session?
Well, yeah. So, okay, to answer that in kind of a very quick and dirty, and this is not, I mean, so it's like paint drying at the moment, and I don't mean to be light about it, but the pandemic has really slowed down the legislative process. So the legislature went into session on January 12th. We're now a month in, and we just got committees in the House last week. We've had committees in the Senate for a couple weeks now. But the House isn't going to be doing any business until March at the earliest, from what we're hearing. The bills that get filed, the first order of business for every bill that gets filed in the Texas legislature is that it gets assigned to a committee. And the House has not been referring any bills yet to committee. And if I'm remembering right, it usually about this time in a regular session, bills are being referred to committees at this point. At the rate that they're going, really, we won't see any significant work coming from the House side of the legislature until probably early March. It looks like appropriations may get organized next week and start having hearings about the budget. And of course, this week, the Senate Finance Committee started its discussions on the budget. And so really, at this point, it looks like both chambers are very much focused on the budget and making sure that gets done, because there's been real uncertainty and questions about how smoothly the legislative process is going to go this time around because of the pandemic. They're really limiting the number of people in the Capitol. They're doing some optional COVID testing outside the building if somebody wants to get tested before they go in, although I don't think that's a requirement for them to be tested before they go into the building. Mm-hmm. But a lot of offices are asking folks, if you're going to come into the Capitol and you want to come into our office, we really want you to make an appointment first. It's not like a normal session where we just can walk into the Capitol and drop into offices all day long and talk to staff and talk to members. There's a real disconnect in that regard. We're just not able to get physical face-to-face communications with folks at the Capitol unless it's on a Zoom or like this through a virtual platform or by phone or email, because it's just to keep as many people safe at the Capitol. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of staffers that have to go to work every day. And of course, a lot of staffers are concerned about contracting COVID at work. So in respect to the offices and the people that work at the Capitol, we're trying to do it as much as we can at this point remotely. And so that's why it's important that our members are engaged in a virtual way, because they really are at the crux of delivering the message of what's happening in our schools and with our school employees. So if Michaela, if you want to put that banner up with the link to our Action Network, many of our members have received an email explaining what this letter is and why we're sending it. Basically, it's a way for even non-members. So members, and of course, we encourage our members to share this link with their community, with other colleagues, and with family, to write a letter to their senator. And this link will put you onto a page that you put in your personal information, and it automatically generates a letter for you that you can edit, and then it will automatically send it to your senator. You don't have to find an email address for the senator. It will just go directly to the senator that is your senator in your district. So it's a great way to communicate with the members of the legislature right now. And we're focused on the Senate at the moment because they're dealing with the budget this week. And at some point in the next several weeks, as the House starts to take up the budget, we will then focus this action alert over to the House side so that you can then send an email letter to your House member. And, there's three primary things that we're really focused on right now that are very important. The first one is, why aren't teachers and school employees a priority for vaccination? Why isn't the governor making school employees part of 1B so that they can get in line with other people at risk and first responders and medical personnel? I mean, teachers should be really considered no differently than a first responder or a nurse
Absolutely.
or a doctor. If our leadership in Texas really wants to get schools reopened at capacity and get our kids back into the classrooms and do it in a safe way, the best thing they could be doing right now is making sure that all our employees are vaccinated for COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first message in this email that we're asking folks to send. The second is to hold districts harmless in school funding. The first semester of the school year, Commissioner Morath granted a waiver and gave districts hold harmless, which basically means that they'll get the same funding they got last school year in 2019-20. And since we have seen some significant drops in student population across the state, because we fund our schools per pupil, when we lose students, districts lose money. So, and they still have to operate in the same way. So in order for us to make sure that schools have the resources necessary to educate our kids, both in person and remote, and to even be able to keep them going past the pandemic and do all the remediation that they're going to need to do with our students, we really need to keep that level of funding up. And so that's one of the other requests that we're making. And then the third request, of course, is the STAR exam and waiving the STAR exam. And we just learned today, Commissioner Morath was on a Texas Tribune event, and he answered the question about our students being required to go to campus to take the STAR. His answer was, well, if you are learning remote, you do not have to take the STAR exam. You're basically not able to take it because you're remote and you're not on campus, which is a kind of a roundabout way of saying you've basically opted out of taking the STAR exam if you're in remote instruction. So we haven't seen any official documentation out of TEA on this piece and what all the guidance is going to be surrounding that. I imagine, since Commissioner Morath just said it today at a Tribune event, I imagine that will be coming out in the next week so that we have more information about what that looks like and what that means. But at this point, it looks like the only students that are going to be required to take the STAR exam are the ones that are in-person instruction.
Now, Portia, I do have a question on that because I know they have been asking on that. And well, first of all, if it's only the ones who are going face to face, and let's say right now everything is so unpredictable, and people could be going and then all of a sudden they have to be out if they were exposed or whatever the case. Are they going to require them to make up the exam if they were absent the date of the exam? Or, I mean, I would think like it wouldn't have to be made up because of the situation, but I don't know. Have they touched on details like that? I know they've been working very last minute with thinking all the things through. That at least that's how our district has been working, unfortunately. And so I'm wondering, have they mentioned anything as far as that?
No. We just heard this one statement from Commissioner Morath today. It was literally one sentence. So, and the Houston Chronicle did a story on it this evening, which basically said the same thing that Commissioner Morath is saying. If you're not in person for your learning, you're not going to have to take the STAR exam. Now, if you're an in-person and you're absent on the day that STAR is administered, how they handle that is unknown at this point. Certainly that will be something that we will be looking at TEA for guidance so that we can then tell you all what that means. But at this point, this is breaking news, as CNN likes to say. So really there's not a lot to tell you at this point other than this is what the commissioner said today. And it was pretty big news because everyone was being told that kids were going to, even the remote learners, were going to have to go back to a campus to take this exam or to take whatever STAR exam they're required to take. So this is something that we'll be watching over the course of the next week.
I have a question for you.
I'm sorry.
One of the concerns that I always hear is that how come teachers are forced to go back to the campus when the state, TEA, or any federal or state government agency, they're working remotely?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Go ahead.
There's kind of a disconnect there, isn't there? That there's. All I can say is that they are trying to figure out the best way to keep our kids educated and up to grade level as best as they can. And the only way that they figured to do that was to have this kind of hybrid system. Because if you have students out there that don't have access to a computer or don't have reliable internet access, then schools really do need to make a space for those students. So it's not an ideal world by any stretch. As you probably have seen, there's been a lot of discord between teachers and employees and administrators on who should be up at the schools teaching and who can do it remotely. A lot of that was controlled by the number of employees that were asking for accommodations because of a pre-existing condition. And certainly districts, I think, probably prioritize those employees over folks that weren't asking for an accommodation. And then, of course, you had some that just volunteered and were willing to go up to the campuses. So, in the school environment, it seems to me like our policymakers and leaders at the top didn't feel like doing the same thing for their employees was necessary for the public school employees across the state. And it's sad that we haven't been able to have a system that keeps everybody safe. And that we've had a lot of people either come down with COVID, and we've had some folks die of COVID.
Hello?
Did we? She froze. So hopefully we'll get her back really soon. So what I wanted to touch on, and I'm going to ask her once she's able to have a connection again, I want a little bit more information on what it is that we're asking for on those different things that she mentioned. What are we exactly pushing for the vaccine? I know, yes, they're pushing to get the educators bumped up on that, which we all agree on. And but exactly what is it that we're pushing on for that? But I don't know if you want to go through the messages, Michaela, and so we can see.
I'm gonna have to step out, Ida. I do have a little emergency I have to tend to.
Oh,
But
my.
I'll leave as soon as Maggie gets in. She already sent her the link.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Because I cannot manage the messages. So
It's a family emergency that I just got a message.
no, that's fine. And actually, what we could do is if we have to reschedule this, we can go ahead and do that, because I don't think Maggie's going to be familiar with managing the messages, and
Okay.
I don't have that. So let's just go ahead and we can go ahead and finish the show right now, and we will schedule it for another time. Okay? So we apologize for the sudden change, but we will be sending you all a message with an update on when we can continue this show.
I'm so sorry.
No problem. Not a problem. Okay. Bye.